speaking about AI. And AI, it's a little bit like electricity. If you can have a spark, but without the right infrastructure, you cannot go nowhere. So our first session of the day is about a founder's guide to AI infrastructure. And for this session, I will have with me on stage Thomas Wolf, co-founder of Hugging Face, and Dima Shvets, co-founder of Reface. And I would like you to give them a very big round of applause.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. We'll start from a short introduction. I'm Dima Shvets. I'm originally from Ukraine. I started building AI businesses before LLM hype and when everything became AI native. So my company, which I was building before, Reface, became pretty successful, has 300 million downloads. And we had our evangelists like Ariana Grande, Justin Bieber, Scooter Braun, and we have A16Z and Ashton Kutcher as investor. Currently, I am angel investing. I'm doing different stuff in terms of supporting my country. I'm board member of Endeavor Ukraine organization, which was founded by Reid Hoffman. And now I'm building my second company called Mirai, which is on-device AI platform. And to start this conversation, I want to say that in my days, when I started company in 2019, AI was kind of hype, not hyped at all, and all this LLM stuff was not so obvious. So we're building all our ML pipelines from scratch, and it was not obvious how to do it. And now founders much better position. You know, when you can combine different open source, closed source stuff, you can grab any open weights, and you can do easily fast in days, not months. And here, that is why I'm super excited to welcome Thomas Wolf, who is a co-founder and chief science officer of Hugging Face, amazing company who they turned, you know, open source and AI into amazing 2 million users marketplace and versatile community who are shifting the frontier what AI can do or not and giving us this opportunity. Thank you for having you, Thomas.
Thanks, Dima. I can just give a word on how I discovered you, because it's quite funny. But a couple of years ago, my son got very excited about a new AI app. So it was before ChatGPT that let you actually change the face of people. And he was like showing me Reface, which was your first big. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. These guys are doing really amazing work.
Yeah.
And so when you contacted me for your second company, I was like, I didn't connect the name directly because this was in so different contexts. One was playing with my son on a app, and the other was like a very serious infrastructure startup, you know, like. And then I was like, oh, actually, I followed you for quite some time now.
Thank you. Yeah. So luckily, I have Thomas as my friend and partner as well. So and keeping that in mind, let's kick off this AI infrastructure play, starting what has evolved within this like crazy 12 months. From my perspective, you know, I see that, you know, AI came from just being a hype cycle to become a must-have option for not only tech businesses. They like decided on board level whether they should do it or not. And this AGI play, AGI 2027, you wrote about it before, but even if AGI happens, yeah, if it happens, AI will become a foundation layer AI infrastructure overnight, you know, whether you succeed or not. If not, you know, AI will still make a huge impact and have their place as like databases once did before. And we should understand that business is business. And when you are thinking about applying and implementing AI infrastructure, you should think about cost, efficiency, privacy. And in this case, you basically need to understand that kind of adoption is coming. Novelty phase is done. Now you need to justify that investments in AI should pay back in terms of ROI, and the mass deployment has begun. And starting about that, it's interesting from your co-founder and Hugging Face vantage standpoint. What do you think founders could not resist and escaped not to keep in mind into account when building AI infrastructure and building businesses with AI.
So I think there is a general shift, progressive shift, which is what you're saying. We move from kind of just the hype, AI being used in like newspaper, I don't know, to make the cover of Cosmopolitan, to kind of AI becoming more like a natural technology, just like the internet that everyone can expect you to use in your work in a way, if you can, of course, and to incorporate in your startups, if you're starting, if you're an entrepreneur. I often joke, like people tell me, oh, what are you investing in? Are you investing only in AI? And I would say it's kind of almost difficult nowadays to imagine a new venture, a new startup that doesn't make use of AI. So when you say investing in AI, it's almost everything, right? So
exactly.
It ranged from obviously like really AI native tools, I don't know, coding help, but it goes down to AI for mechanical engineering, even for construction. So it's really covering everything. And I would say it's a little bit like the internet. We don't really say you invest in internet company nowadays, which feels very old school to say that. Basically, every company is supposed to have kind of an internet presence, right? Or like it's, except maybe some, I can't imagine, I think, any company who would not have an internet presence. I think AI is going to be the same. And so that as a consequence, I think it means we'll have a lot of different ways to use AI. So obviously there is the frontier models. It's very important to use them, to understand what they are capable of, to use the latest OpenAI models, to really understand where is the frontier. But there is also some issues. The frontier models are extremely powerful, but they're also rather costly. Well, the cost keeps getting down, but if you base all your business on them, it's still a significant cost. And for many new companies, it can be the dominant cost, actually. And then you have all the tails of like models who are not at the frontier, but who are still quite powerful. And so you can build things on top. And a big part of this model can also run, and that's what I'm very excited about, they can also run on the edge. They can run on your smartphone. They can run on your laptop. You don't even have to always, pay a distant data center in the US most of the time to run your models, but you can run them locally. And this reduces the cost a lot. It's also make it faster. If it runs on your laptop, it's also work in many conditions where you don't have network. So it opens actually a lot of capabilities that I think business should also explore nowadays.
Yeah, thank you very much. I totally agree. But so basically, we see that a lot of capabilities, but still access to data and evaluation pipelines is pretty crucial. I would like to touch a super fast point of your bread and butter, open source, and versus cloud source as well. So in my case, when I was started, everybody was thinking, okay, should I do open source? Should I go open weights, or should I use closed API? And then I realized that now you can do both. If you are a solid founder, you can get all this infrastructure and do it both and understand how we can do it. So from your perspective, what founders should keep in mind when decided between using some open source solution or closed source? Because closed source is great in terms of, let's call it resources and how businesses can be made and go to market velocity, paychecks. And open source is always a frontier of innovation of the community.
I mean, I can just quickly remind what's the difference. I mean, the main difference is some closed model, you basically have to use them through the data center of someone else. So you have to send your data, they will process it and send it back. So you don't really have the control on where it's happening. You don't really have the control on the cost. They are fixed by the providers, and you don't really have the control of, also the type of model. Usually you have just one model, and that's it. Open source is much more flexible. It's like a software you can download, so you can run it even locally, but you can also rent some specific data center or like some specific, GPU, CPU instances and decide to run it yourself. And this brings a wealth of interesting aspects. The first one is data privacy. If it's important, it can be a key. So in finance industry, legal industry, it can be very important. It also lets you really tailor the model. So that's what you said. If you have some specific domain where you work and you're actually not really happy about how the closed source models are working, you can fine-tune this model. You can adapt this model and make it better on your domain. And it helps you play a lot with the cost. So you can run a range of smaller and smaller models. There is kind of a really long tail of models that are smaller and smaller and smaller. They are less and less intelligent, but on the other hand, they are more and more cost-effective, because the smaller the model, usually the cheaper it is to run. And in some case, you have to run this. So I know, for instance, I was with a good friend in London who is running like AI models on billions of financial records, and he could not run a very large latest OpenAI model on this. That would be much too expensive, much too slow. But with kind of a smaller models, he choose a mid-range open source model. He can definitely process basically all the records and get full coverage of the financial transaction. So it's mostly a big part of this is these cost performance benefits, which means that the first step usually to really use AI effectively is to, and that's not very common in previous software maybe, but is to set up a good benchmark. So you gather, a good type of question that you have in your domain, and a good type of gold answers, so that you can evaluate all the models, closed source, open, various type of open source model, and see basically which one is still get the performance threshold you need, but is the cheapest. So that's usually really the first step you should do.
Definitely, definitely. Okay, let's try to zoom in terms of local inference, and on device. Basically, it looks like it's a huge new frontier, which always existed. And congrats with acquiring Poland Robotics. And after that, you tweeted that that is specifically that robotics is the next AI, the next frontier which AI will evolve. And I really like the tweet of Andrei Karpathy as well, that the chatbots is not our final user interface. So what do you think in terms of on-device? Because from my experience in my company in Mirai, we are in the process now of piloting a huge health tech provider and deploying on-device models while using them on iOS and Android, and helping to eliminate some sensitive privacy, health data, and optimizing cost. From your experience, at what extreme on-device it should be developed in order to use it like globally, and from your experience as well?
I'm really bullish on device, on having the AI model that really run next to you. So the first place we'll have them is smartphone. I think there's a lot of very interesting use case in terms of speed. We're kind of used to wait always a little bit for ChatGPT, which is surprising. So, for instance, it's a side project, but I did in Amsterdam. I did an art performance where actually people could walk in. There was an open theater with friends. It was part of a big exhibition, and they could interact with an AI, and the AI was running locally. I was coding that on the weekend, and it was running so fast that a lot of people didn't really believe it was an AI. They were like, no, usually I'm used to wait for ChatGPT, and this one is answering instantly. And so I was trying to convince them after the performance it was a real AI. That was not a human talking. That was like a real thing. But just this to say that this unlock kind of experience we are not yet used to. You could have really instant response on anything. You could even have, like, if it's integrated in some tools, could go instantly. And there is one domain, that's what you're saying, which is extremely important, I think, is if we start to have robots. And I'm also quite bullish on robots. I think they're going to start to work, not only because of Gen AI and ChatGPT technology, but basically the general field of robotics had a couple of breakthroughs last year. And with the robots, you definitely want them to react instantly if something happened, right? You don't want them to wait and then update and, oh, I fall off the cliff. That was too slow. Yeah. So there is really an extremely important question of speed and latency. And then if you project longer in the future, I think if we think AI is going to become really a fundamental brick of many things, there is this idea that you can run AI on much more energy efficient hardware. So it's two trends that couple here. There is one which is that the models, the AI models themselves keep getting smaller with the same level of performance. So when there is faster model from OpenAI, for instance, it's only smaller models, right? That's out there, and we've seen that in open source as well, which is a model of this year can be 2 to 10 times smaller than the model with the same performance of last year. So this trend is really great because it means smaller models are much more easy to embed. And the other trend is we can have optimized hardware as well. So we start to have that a bit right in the iPhone. We start to have neural chips. But there is a limit where the hardware we could have could be really very, very energy efficient. And so you can imagine a future where basically, just like we are kind of getting used now to have like computers and microprocessors everywhere, right? So probably in these slides, there is like a microprocessor somewhere. It's digital at some point. We might have like AI processor and basically AI intelligence a bit everywhere in the very low power, I don't know, 2 watts, something, 5 watts. I realized that when I was in SF 3 weeks ago, and I saw these hardware startups, and they were running a 3 billion parameters model, which is quite big actually.
Yeah.
And they were running that on a very low power device that was the size of my smartphone. And the intended use was for like small business. They don't always have like a structured database hosted on the cloud. Sometimes they just have basically a SIM card with you know all their inventory. And so you put the SIM card and they can talk with their inventory. And I was like, that's so futuristic, right?
Yeah, that's like, a real interface, yeah.
And it's really nice because it really lowers a lot the barrier of entry as well.
Exactly, exactly. I totally agree that we're coming to this point where I would like to speak about kind of, we talked about the past, the present, and future, but I would like to think about the future like in 3-5 years, how everybody can adopt AI. And what I see now is like, you know, it reminds me of the time when it was an iPhone and Apple Store. And it was an amazing time where there was explosion of apps, of businesses going through. And it was super interesting because you basically can touch with your fingertips any application, and every user can do that. And after that, businesses can be unlocked and all the cloud infrastructure. But everything started from on device, you know. And I see now in terms of a local inference on device, you know, we come into the point where it's like a next, you know, like an inflection point. Because at that point of time, you see that still when we get up in the morning, we basically get our iPhone, and unless it's not the main human, you know, machine interface, we'll definitely using that. So I think that what is crucial here is that we can use like the best of the cloud because it's pretty resistant, scalable, and it did and doing a great job. In the meantime, I think the more adoption on device, like our fingertips are doing, the more opportunity we'll give for businesses to develop. So I think like for those founders who are developing AI native apps and keeping in mind privacy, efficiency, and cost, it's super important to keep in mind that the combination of on-device as a starting point to get it, to use it as a user base, as your business, and then going down, because all these two worlds merged together have the maximum kind of result. So, like, I guess we're somehow coming to the final stage of our conversation. It's interesting to hear what would you wish AI native builders to do, you know, like in this like upcoming years, keeping in mind all the opportunities and limitations we have?
Yeah, I think there is two exciting areas, mostly. The first one is actually the one you're saying, which is I see basically the startup and all you can do as 3 levels. So there is the very low level, which is go from chips to optimizing inference to basically making sure these things are really good. And that's what you do very well. And I don't think there is nearly enough people working on that. I feel like it's very, for some reason, the big labs don't really work on this level. So this is very exciting, I would say. There is the training big model part, which is the most shiny, but I think maybe a bit less exciting because there is so many people on that. You know, you're competing with all the big labs as well. So I don't know if it's. And then there is all the app layer, which is you take AI and you try to think, what can I use that for? What can it be? What type of new application I can build with AI? And I think this is the second part that I find very exciting. So I think both these extremes are both like full of opportunities, full of, it's a green field, of new things you can build. Just like when the App Store was created and you're like, there's so many new apps I can invent, I can create. I think it's the same nowadays with AI.
I could not agree more, Thomas. In my view, like everything evolving so fast in terms of application infrastructure layer. But to finish, I would like to tell everybody that if you're building AI infrastructure, either it's AI native or not, you need to keep it like pretty efficient, private, and resilient. Otherwise, big tech guys, giants, and foundation model guys will basically eat your lunch, you know? Like, so you need to keep in mind the distribution, the privacy. You need to keep in mind the opportunity, how you can stand out in this super fast and high velocity world. Thomas, thank you very much for your time, for your insight. And I think it's a great, amazing event. And thank you, people and crowd, for this amazing energy. And I would personally thank Lefteris and Lars for organizing such event in Greece.
Hope you will have a great day. Looking forward to all the discussion today.
Thank you very much. Yeah.